Shalom, shalom, Most High in Christ bless. Most High in Christ bless. Tuned in to 4 chapters a day. Tuned in to 4 chapters a day. I'm Officer Kimmy Will, Iuic Orlando. We give everybody a few more minutes to chime on. We're in the book of 1 Samuel. Book of 1 Samuel, chapter 20 through 23 today. Pray everybody is well. Pray y'all doing well today. Getting prepared for the feast. Getting ready to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So we give everybody a couple more minutes to log on. And pray y'all doing well. Coming off of the Day of Atonement. All right. So pray y'all in the spirit. Again, we're gonna be going over 1 Samuel. We're doing the reading, chapters 20 through 23. All right. Chapters 20 through 23. Can you see and hear me clearly? Can you see and hear me clearly? All right, we're going to give it like one more minute, then we're going to get started. All praises, all praises. Trying to get my last bit of shopping done before the feast begins. Thought I had everything that I needed from last year, but things come up. You find yourself having to go replace stuff. So, hey, y'all send up prayers too for our brothers and sisters in the Florida Panhandle and Mobile, Mississippi area, Louisiana. Got that storm just sitting there twirling right there off of the coast. So keep our brothers and sisters in prayers for that. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Because again, I know I still got some things to do, and before we have our next class come on. So this is 4 chapters a day. Again, I'm Officer Kimmy Well of the Orlando camp. We're going to be reading through 1 Samuel, chapter 20 through 23. All right. 1 Samuel, chapter 20, verse 1. And David fled from Naioth in Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, what have I done? What is mine iniquity? And what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life? And he said unto him, God forbid, thou shalt not die. Behold, my father will do nothing, either great or small, but that he will show it to me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. And David sware moreover, and said, Thy father certainly knoweth that I have found grace in thine eyes. And he saith, Let not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is but a step between me and death. Then said Jonathan unto David, Whatsoever thy soul desireth, I will do it, even for thee. And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I shall not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. If thy father at all miss me, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me that he might run to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice for all the family. If he say thus, it is well, thy servant shall have peace. But if he be very wroth, then be sure that evil is determined by him. Therefore, thou shalt deal kindly with thy servant, for thou hast brought thy servant into a covenant of the Lord with thee. Notwithstanding, if there be in me iniquity, slay me thyself. For why wouldest thou bring me to thy father? And Jonathan said, Far be it from thee. If I knew certainly that evil were determined by my father to come upon thee, then would not I tell it thee? Then said David to Jonathan, Who shall tell me? Or what if thy father answered thee roughly? And Jonathan said unto David, Come, and let us go into the field. And they went out, both of them, into the field. And Jonathan said unto David, O Lord God of Israel, when I have sounded my father about tomorrow at any time, or the third day, and behold, if there be good toward David, and I then sin not unto thee, show it thee. The Lord do so much more to Jonathan. But if it please my father to do thee evil, then I will show it thee and send thee away, that thou mayst go in peace. And the Lord be with thee, as he hath been with my father. And thou shalt not only while yet I live show me kindness of the Lord, that I die not. But also, thou shalt not cut off thy kindness from my house forever. No, not when the Lord hath cut off my enemies of David, hath cut off the enemies of David from the face of the earth. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, Let the Lord require it at the hand of David's enemies. And Jonathan caused David to swear again, because he loved him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to David, Tomorrow is the new moon. Thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. And when thou hast stayed 3 days, then thou shalt go down quickly and come to the place where thou didst hide thyself when the business was at hand, and shalt remain by the stone Ezel. And I will shoot 3 arrows on the side thereof, as though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send a lad, saying, Go out to the arrows. If I expressly say unto the lad, Behold, the arrows are on the side of thee, take them, then come down, for there is peace to thee, and no hurt, as the Lord liveth. But if I say unto the young man, Behold, the arrows are beyond thee, go thy way, for the Lord has sent thee away. As touching the matter which thou and I have spoken of, behold, the Lord be with thee, I'm sorry, behold, the Lord be between thee and me forever. So David hid himself in the field. And when the new moon was come, the king sat down to eat meat. And the king sat upon his seat, as at other times, even upon a seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something had befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to me, neither yesterday nor today? And Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. And he said, Let me go, I pray thee, for our family hath a sacrifice in the city. And my brother, he hath to be there. And now, if I have found favor in thine eyes, let me get away, I pray thee, and see my brethren. Therefore he cometh not unto the king's table. Then Saul was angry. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said unto him, Thou son of the perverse, rebellious woman, do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to thine own confusion, and unto thy confusion of thy mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse liveth upon the ground, thou shalt not be established, nor thy kingdom. Wherefore now send and fetch him unto me, for he shall surely die. And Jonathan answered Saul, his father, and said unto him, Wherefore shall he be slain? What hath he done? And Saul cast a javelin at him to smite him, whereby Jonathan knew that it was determined of his father to slay David. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and did eat no meat the second day of the month. For he was grieved for David, because his father had done him shame. And it came to pass in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David and a little lad with him. And he said unto his lad, Run, find out now the arrows which I shoot. And as the lad ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. And when the lad was come to the place of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan cried after the lad and said, It is not, or is not the arrow beyond thee? And Jonathan cried after the lad, Make speed, haste, stay not. And Jonathan's lad gathered up the arrows and came to his master. But the lad knew not anything, only Jonathan and David knew the matter. And Jonathan gave his artillery unto his lad and said unto him, Go, carry them to the city. And as soon as the lad was gone, David arose out of a place toward the south and fell on his face to the ground and bowed himself 3 times. And they kissed one another and wept one with another until David exceeded. And Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, for as much as we have sworn, both of us, in the name of the Lord, saying, The Lord be between me and thee, and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. All right, so let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 21 and verse 1. Then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David, and said unto him, Why art thou alone, and no man with thee? And David said unto Ahimelech the priest, The king hath commanded me a business, and hath said unto me, Let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, and what I have commanded thee. And I have appointed my servants to such a such place. Now therefore, what is under thine hand? Give me the loaves of bread in mine hand, or what is there present? And the priest answered David and said, There is no common bread under mine hand, but there is hallowed bread. If the young men have kept themselves at least from women. And David answered the priest and said unto him, Of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in a manner common, yea, though it were sanctified this day in the vessel. So the priest gave him hallowed bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken before him, from that was taken from before the Lord, to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg an Edomite, the chiefest of the herdmen that belonged to Saul. And David said unto Ahimelech, And is there not here under thine hand spear or sword? For I have neither brought my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. And the priest said, The sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom thou slewest, is in the valley of Elah. Whom thou slewest in the valley of Elah, behold, it is here wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If thou wilt take it, take it, for there is no other save that here. And David said, there is none like that. Give it me. And David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul, and went to Achish, the king of Gath. And the servants of Achish said unto him, is not this David, the king of the land? Did it did he not sing one to another of him in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? And David laid up these words in his heart, and was sore afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. And he changed his behavior before them, and feigned himself mad in their hands, and scrabbled on the doors of the gate, and let his spittle fall down upon his beard, and said, Achish unto the servants. Then said Achish unto the servants, lo, ye see the man is mad. Wherefore then have ye bought him to me? Have I need of mad men, that ye have bought this fellow to play mad man in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? So David was playing crazy. All right. He said he was fearful, and David was playing crazy. But I want to go back up to uh, 1 Samuel 21:6, where it says, so the priest gave him hollow bread, for there was no bread but the shewbread that was taken from before the Lord, to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. So um, remember, David was out in the field for 3 days. All right, fearful of King Saul. So now let's go to the book of Mark. Mm, mm, mm. Let's go to the book of Mark, chapter 2, and verse 23. We're going to read down to 26. Mark 2 and 23. And it came to pass that he went through the cornfields on the Sabbath day, and his disciples began as they went to pluck the ears of corn. And the Pharisees said unto him, behold, why do they on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful? And he said unto them, have you never read what David did when he had need and wasn't hungered? So that's the history we just read. I just want you to link these two together. Precept this if you don't have it already in your Bibles. Verse 25, he says, and he said unto them, have you never read what David did when he had need and was an hungered? He and they that were with him, how he went into the house of God in the days of Abiathar the high priest, and did eat the shewbread, which is not lawful to eat, but for the priest, and gave also to them which were with him. Okay, so now that's that history that Christ is recounting that we're reading here in 1 Samuel chapter 21. All right. All right. So let's go back and let's read 1 Samuel chapter 22 and verse 1. David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave Adullam. And when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. And every one that was in distress, and every one that was in debt, and every one that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him. And he became a captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. And David went thence to Mizpah of Moab. And he said unto the king of Moab, let my father and my mother, I pray thee, come forth, and I will be with you, till I know what God will do for me. And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the while that David was in the hold. And the prophet Gad said unto David, abide not in the hold, depart, and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed, and they came to the forest Hereth. When Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men that were with him, now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, having his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. Then Saul said unto his servants that stood about him, Hear now, ye Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, that all of you have conspired against me? And there is none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the son of Jesse? And there is none of you that is sorry for me, or showeth unto me that my son has stirred up my servant against me, to lie in wait as it is this day, or as at this day. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul. So as you see here, you have Saul placed an Edomite over his servants. Okay. Saul placed an Edomite over his servants. Let's get that right quick in Sirach. Let's get that right quick in Sirach, chapter 12 and verse 10. It says, Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. So the scriptures tell us that we are never supposed to trust our enemies, but yet what we're reading is Saul had placed an Edomite over his servants. All right, so let's read that again. 1 Samuel 22 and 9. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, and Ahimelech the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him victuals, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were in Nob. And they came, all of them, to the king. And Saul said, Hear now, thou son of Ahitub. And he answered, Here I am, my lord. And Saul said unto him, Why have you conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse, in that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me, to lie in wait as at this day? Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, And who is so faithful among all thy servants as David, which the king's son-in-law, or which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honorable in thine house? Did I begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me. Let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to the house of my father. For thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. And the king said, Thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, Turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled and did not show it to me. But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. And the king said to Doeg, Turn thou and fall upon the priest. And Doeg the Edomite turned and fell upon the priest, and slew on that day 85 persons that wear a linen ephod. So you see, Saul was able to get the Edomite to turn and do what his own men would not do. But remember, the scriptures say, never trust thine enemy, right? Let's go to Genesis right quick, show you the spirit that's been placed on this man from the beginning. Genesis 27 and 41. We're going to read. It says, And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. And these words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. And she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau is touching thee doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. So just as in the time of Saul, when he got Doeg the Edomite to kill the priest, even to this very day, which you see with our people suffering violence at the hands of the other nations. Not to say we don't do violence to ourselves, but in this case, suffering violence at the hands of the other nations, especially Esau. We read in Genesis, he gets comfort. He gets comfort out of killing us. Okay, so when uh Saul appointed him to do that task, you best believe he was quite happy over that thing. He probably found much pleasure in killing the priest. All right, so let's go back. 1 Samuel chapter 22 and verse 19. And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and suckling, and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. And one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priest. And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. Abide thou with me, fear not, for he that seeketh my life seeketh thy life. But with me thou shalt be in safeguard. Okay, so let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 23. 1 Samuel chapter 23 and verse 1. Then they told David, saying, Behold, the Philistines fight against Keilah, and they rob the threshing floors. Therefore David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go and smite these Philistines? And the Lord said unto David, Go and smite the Philistines and save Keilah. And David's men said unto him, Behold, we be afraid here in Judah. How much more then if we come to Keilah against the armies of the Philistines? Then David inquired of the Lord yet again. And the Lord answered him and said, Arise, go down to Keilah, for I will deliver the Philistines into thine hand. So David and his men went to Keilah and fought with the Philistines, and brought away their cattle, and smote them with a great slaughter. So David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. And it came to pass, when Abiathar, the son of Ahimelech, fled to David to Keilah, that he came down with an ephod in his hand. And it was told Saul that David was come to Keilah. And Saul said, God hath delivered him into mine hand, for he is shut in, by entering into a town that hath gates and bars. And Saul called all the people together to war, to go down to Keilah, to besiege David and his men. And David knew that Saul secretly practiced mischief against him. And David said to Abiathar the priest, Bring hither the ephod. Then said David, O Lord God of Israel, thy servant has surely heard that Saul seeketh to come to Keilah to destroy the city for my sake. Will the men of Keilah deliver me into his hand? Deliver me up into his hand? Will Saul come down as thy servant hath heard? O Lord God of Israel, I beseech thee, tell thy servant. And the Lord said, He will come down. Then said David, Will the men of Keilah deliver me and my men into the hand of Saul? And the Lord said, They will deliver thee up. Then David and his men, which were about 6,000, or I'm sorry, which were about 600, arose and departed out of Keilah, and went whithersoever they could go. And it was told Saul that David was escaped from Keilah, for he forbore to go forth. And David abode in the wilderness, in strongholds, and remained in the mountain in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God delivered him not into his hand. And David saw that Saul was come to seek his life. And David was in the wilderness of Ziph in the wood. And Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David into the wood and strengthened his hand in God. And he said unto him, Fear not, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find thee, and thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee, and that also Saul my father knoweth. And they two made a covenant before the Lord. And David abode in the wood, and Jonathan went to his house. Then came up the Ziphites to Saul to Gibeah, saying, Doth not David hide himself with us in strongholds in the wood, in the hill of Hilkiah, which is on the south side of Jeshimon? Now therefore, O king, come down according to all the desire of thy soul to come down, and our part shall be to deliver him into the king's hand. And Saul said, Blessed be ye of the Lord, for ye have compassion on me. Go, I pray you, prepare yet, and know and see his place where where his haunt is, and who has seen him there? For it is told me that he dealeth very subtly. See therefore, and take knowledge of all the lurking places where he hideth himself, and come yet again to me with certainty, and I will go with you. And it shall come to pass, if he be in the land, that I will search him out throughout all the thousands of Judah. So he's asking, Saul's asking the Ziphites for intel, okay? Because Saul knows David is a man of war, and he want to be absolutely sure David is exactly where you say he is. All right, verse 24. And they arose and went to Ziph before Saul. But David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon, in the plain on the south of Jeshimon. Saul also and his men went to seek him, and they told David wherefore he came down into a rock and abode in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard that, he pursued after David in the wilderness of Maon. And Saul went on this side of the mountain, and David and his men on that side of the mountain. And David made haste to get away for fear of Saul. For Saul and his men compassed David and his men round about to take them. But there came a messenger unto Saul, saying, Haste thee, come, for the Philistines have invaded the land. Wherefore Saul returned from pursuing after David and went against the Philistines there. Therefore they called that place Salah Hamalakah. And David went up from thence and dwelt in the strongholds at Engedi. All right. So that was 1 Samuel chapter 20 through 23. We were reading about the David fleeing at the first of the month at the new moon. His seat was empty. Saul getting wind of his son hiding David out, and Saul pursuing David. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward reading there in the history. So that's going to conclude today. Really wasn't much to be pulling in the way of precepts for that. Again, it's pretty straightforward. But if you do have questions, um, go log back on to 4 chapters a day and request or post your questions, and the captains will review your questions and they will answer them. All right. So again, you've been tuned in to IUIC, 4 chapters a day, 1 Samuel 20 through 23. I pray you all are preparing for the Feast of Tabernacles. Pray you're still in the spirit from the Day of Atonement. You only got about sundown tomorrow. You got about 24 hours. You got about 24 hours to finish getting your tents and your sleeping bags and your oil for the mosquitoes. All right, if you're keeping the Sabbath out in the wilderness somewhere. But with that, family, remember to tune in. Um, we have classes 3 times a day, 7 days a week. Um, join the Booster Club or donate so that the leadership can continue to travel as soon as this ban is lifted. They can continue to travel throughout the four corners of the earth and bring this glorious gospel of Christ to the lost sheep. All right. So with that, I'm gonna say shalom, family. Most High in Christ bless.